in order to begin to explain this, we need a little history, because actually people would like to know, how did you ever get started on something like this? Okay? So to begin with, the first experience that I had was when I joined the service. When I was drafted, at the time I was married with 3 kids. And talking to a psychiatrist, this man attracted my attention. I observed the man talking to other people, questioning other inductees, and he attracted my attention because I felt that the man is asking silly questions. And I wondered, being a lieutenant colonel, I could imagine the salary he's getting. To ask silly questions, I wonder what field is he in. The first question was, you see, I'm 30 years of age, married with 3 kids, and he asked the question, do you wet your bed? I thought I had heard wrong. How was that, sir? I said, do you wet your bed? You mean at night? Well, anytime. Well, I didn't know that 30-year-old people wet their beds, you know. I said, no, sir, I don't wet my bed. I wondered. I thought it was silly, the question, you know. Then the next question was, do you like women? And I said, what the heck's going on here? I said, I'll answer the question, sir, in this manner. I'm married with 3 kids. You figure it out. How's that, huh? And I said, what field are you in, really? What are these silly questions? He said, well, they may sound silly to you, but there's a reason for it. I'm sure there is, because the government would be paying you the salary that I believe you're getting just for asking silly questions. You're right. Then I'm asking the questions. How did you ever get interested in such a field? And he said, well, it's a long story, but they don't care which way the questions and answers go. They want to see if it makes sense either way. See? I'll figure that out later, of course. So then he said, you look this book up and read it, and you will know how I became interested. And he gave me the title of a book, The History of Psychiatry. This is how I began looking into the field of psychology, studying on my own as a hobby. When I got out of the service, I really took it very seriously in going out to hear lectures and participate in some lessons that some of these top-notch psychologists and psychiatry were teaching. Just to sit in and hear these people, what are they teaching? How do they get started, you know? And I continued to study psychology. Along the study of psychology, I came across the term hypnosis. Now I wanted to know what that is. So I started to look into it, investigate the field, and I studied under some of the big names in the field of hypnosis and hypnoanalysis. I became proficient in it, to be able to hypnotize, they call it, to cause an individual to enter a state of mind whereby the person can go or could go through surgery without the use of chemical anesthesia. And that's as deep as you can hypnotize anybody. So I became proficient in that. But then again, kept on studying psychology. Along comes the term parapsychology. Now what is that? Parapsychology. I investigated the field and found out that organizations with the people, some scientists, top high-ranking scientists, interested in the extraordinary mental faculties of human beings. That whenever they heard about an individual that had this extended sense perception type of mind, they would bring him into a lab and to test him, to figure out what makes him tick, you know. I figured at first, I thought, that maybe these people also could teach people how to develop the faculty. In talking to Dr. Ryan, one of the top parapsychologists in the world, he said, no, there's no way you can develop it. It's something that God has given us, God-gifted individuals. Some have a lot of it, some have very little of it, some have none of it at all. Well, it didn't make sense to me. I figured, I don't think God discriminates, you know, to give us more or something that doesn't give others the same amount. Well, that was my own thinking, anyway. But he stuck to it. He said, you cannot develop it. It's something like the IQ factor. You cannot develop the psi, it's called psi factor. The intuitive factor is the same name for it, to be able to sense information with your mind as compared to sensing information with your biological senses. So I got pretty involved in parapsychology, but kept on studying the field of psychology. I came across the term electrocephalography, the electronic equipment to measure brain waves. Boy, that really attracted, that was a nice toy for me, you see. My field is electronics. I'm full fully developing in the field that I'm an expert in, you know. So it's full circle for me, that is. So I started experimenting and fooling around, we say, with the idea of the electroencephalograph. The equipment to measure brain waves and to measure the output, the strength of your brain output. You see your brain vibrates so many times per second, like your heart beats so many times per minute. And the brain prefers, I found, prefers to function more than 5, 10, and 20 vibrations more than any other vibration. But then again, to begin with, I wanted to know, what are the first frequencies detected in the fetus, for instance? What are the first frequencies that the brain starts operating on? Well, I found out that you could measure brain waves in the fetal stage, even when the fetus is in the mother's womb, before being born, you see. So the first frequencies are the lowest frequencies of the brain. And that's called the delta frequency. We have a chart here that indicates those frequencies here. You see the delta frequency is in the black band. And we'll discuss the chart later. Right at the bottom is the black band, and that's between 1/2 and 4 cycles per second. Well, this is the area that the fetus is functioning on before being born. Then I found out that the frequencies keep on increasing. The overall average of a child keeps on increasing according to age. We find that if you're 10 years old, there's more tens than any other vibration in your brain. 15, more 15s, and so on. It seems like it's growing at a higher frequency rate or frequency situation or range according to the age. Meaning that once you get to be 20 years of age, you get stuck on 20. You may grow out of 20, 25, 30, 40 years of age. The overall average brain frequency of human beings is 20 vibrations per second. But the overall brain frequency of a child depends on the age. See, it's lower, always lower than the overall average brain frequency of a mature adult. So then I started to look into what is going on here. Our human development, we call it. The child grows in cycles, and they are called 7-year cycles of growth. Every 7 years is a different dimension for growth, we say. And they're called, when you're growing and adding more to your body, they're called anabolic cycles. So we're supposed to grow to peak growth in 7 anabolic cycles, meaning 7 times 7 is 49. So the child starts growing. The first 7-year anabolic cycle, the child starts to learn how to talk, to walk, to do things that interested in many areas. But the mind of a child, we find, functions only what is called inductively. The child up to about 7 years of age, while developing a set of teeth and so on, he does not develop the analytical processes of the mind, which means the child does not know how to analyze. He only responds to the environment, and he adjusts himself to the environment. So the environment is in control of the human being up to age 7. Now, between 7 and 14, the second anabolic cycle, the child develops a new set of teeth. The male starts talking into a mature adult level between 7 and 14, and the female goes into her monthly rhythm. Now here, the mind starts functioning analytically, which means the deductive faculty of mind appears on the scene between 7 and 14 years of age. Now here, the analytical processes, sometimes this is called the critical consciousness. The so-called individual who can analyze, be skeptical if he wants to, or whatever, reject or accept and so on, and his own reasons why and so forth. Well, the deductive faculty of mind, which means intelligence, that's what it means, has come into being. So we find that human intelligence reigns between 7 and 14 years of age. It's when it starts appearing within the human being, male or female. And this is the most important section of the mind where we should learn everything we're about to learn between 7 and 14, which means this is the center of human intelligence, we call it. Now we are distinguishing it between the center of biological or animal intelligence. You see the first cycle, sometimes called an octave. An octave means 7 subdivisions of anything. Octave. An octave is a full dimension. An octave is something compared to a kingdom. A kingdom is self-supporting with its own kingdom, which means something like the kingdom of music composed of 7 notes, not 8. It's called an octave anyway. Because number 8 is the indication that we're getting into another octave, the first or the second octave. So up to 7 is a full octave, a full kingdom, a full dimension. The dimension of music, called the kingdom of music, 7 notes. The dimension of pure white light, the kingdom of pure white light, it's 7 colors of the rainbow, and so on. And the dimension for biological bodies living on the planet, it's called 7 chakras, and so on. So it's a full kingdom here. 7 years is a full kingdom, a full octave. It's a full dimension. So the child in the second kingdom, second octave, second anabolic cycle, develops the faculty, deductive faculty of mind, develops the analytical faculty of mind, which means the center of human intelligence resides within the second anabolic cycle. The second anabolic cycle ranges between 7 and 14 cycles, and the center is 10. And that's called, on the chart, in the blue area, the center of the green is 10 cycles. It's called the alpha dimension or kingdom of mind, see, of brain activity. So this has become very popular now, because now we understand where human intelligence functions, the center of the brain frequency spectrum. Our full spectrum on the average is 20 vibrations. 10 is the center. Well, here is a connection to the right brain hemisphere. We didn't know that. And the right brain hemisphere, when we are not able to use it for thinking, we call it the subconscious. So this is why people and scientists are saying that what we're doing is teaching people how to function consciously within the subconscious. On this chart here again, we have in the blue area, the beta ray region is called. You see, those names, those words, the terms were selected by scientists. It's the Greek alphabet, we know. But they're not in the proper order of human development. They're in the order of how they were discovered. So because at the time that they were looking into the brain, the equipment was not so sensitive, not so sophisticated as you have it now, and the only frequency they could detect was the strongest one of the brain. So the strongest one was the alpha. This is what I found out later too in my own research, you see. So here is the second anabolic cycle. In the first anabolic cycle, this is called the level of animal intelligence. All animals function within the first octave, between or within the first anabolic cycle, between 1 and 7 cycles per second. So animal, the center of biological or animal intelligence is 5 vibrations, but the center of human intelligence is 10 vibrations. And at the 10 vibration point is the connection to the right brain hemisphere. Now we keep on developing, and humans, we find, I have found, in the research that I've done here, that on the average, about 9 out of 10 human beings bypass the connection to the right brain hemisphere. And in the third anabolic cycle, which reaches up to 21, they get stuck on 20. And actually, they do all their thinking and acting on 20 vibrations of the brain. When it seems like that we should learn to first do our thinking on 10, the second anabolic cycle, and act on 20, the third anabolic cycle. Now these people, 90% of humanity, are thinking and acting on the wrong dimension. They're thinking of the dimension that should be only acting. The thinking dimension is where human intelligence resides, the center of human intelligence in the alpha. So we should all learn to do our thinking at alpha, the center part of the brain frequency spectrum, and do our acting on the 20, at the top limit of the range. When I said that the brain prefers to function more than 5, 10, and 20, my curiosity was, which of the 3 is the best? Can we say that? And how can we go about saying that it is? So I figured, well, let's say being orderly or synchronized. Is one more synchronized than another? They would say that one that's more synchronized is better. Is one more stronger than the other? Then the strongest one would say would be better. So I went for that, looking for synchronicity of the brain frequency output in 5, 10, and 20, and the strength of the output of the brain. I found that the weakest one of the 3, the least organized, or the most desynchronized, was the 20 vibration, where 90% of people think and act on. And the strongest of the three was the 10 vibrations of the brain, the strongest and the most synchronized, the most stable of the three. So then we should be thinking where it's the strongest and act where it's the weakest. Well, first of all, we found that 10% of humanity know how to use it naturally. They don't need to be taught. We don't know how they came about it. To begin with, they're using that dimension to think with. They think on 10 and act on 20, which is the ideal. But then we started to label these people. The centered thinker, or the people who does their thinking at the center of the brain frequency spectrum, the normal average spectrum is 20. And the center, of course, is 10. So those who do their thinking on 10, we call them centered thinkers. Of course, the ones that do their thinking on the extreme end of the band, we call them not off-centered, but eccentrics, off-centered, which is the same thing. See? So eccentrics, there are 90% of people are eccentrics in their way of thinking, and only 10% are centered in their way of thinking. Now, our idea was, can we get the eccentrics to become centered? And this is where the research came in, trying to figure out, can this be done? Can we use yoga, for instance, to get them to slow down the brain waves like yogis do? And I found out the yogis went to 5 cycles. That didn't help us any. We want to stop on 10, because 10 is the center of human intelligence. A person going to 5 is like a person being 5 years of age. His mind functions only inductively. They don't have the analytical capacity or faculties there. So looked into the Zen type meditation. Again, we couldn't use it because they went to 5 again. Everybody wanted to go to the deepest levels. And so did transcendental meditation and hypnosis, all went to 5. I couldn't use their systems. The individuals just enter that dimension, they call it passive meditation, and they wait to see if something comes to them. They cannot activate their minds to analyze or look into anything, try to find answers to problems, for instance, because that's mental activity. If they activate their mind, they get out of their level and come out to 20 again. So they couldn't do it. So we didn't want that. We didn't want to lose the faculty of the deductive faculty of mind, the analytical processes. We wanted a system to stop on 10, not on 5. So we started to investigate and started working with individuals. I told Dr. Ryan that we had developed one individual that could do this. Dr. Ryan wouldn't believe it. He said, you're fooling yourself, there's no such a thing. Maybe that person that you worked with had the ability already, and you thought you trained them, and he could be right, because we did pre-test. We didn't know about pre-testing then. So then we trained from 1944, for instance, 1953. In 1953 to 1963, we trained 39 more. We knew we could do it then, to get them to stop on 10. So the Dr. Ryan still wouldn't believe it. See. But then I started working with groups, 20 people in the group, 20 females, 20 males, 50-50. Between 1963 and 1966, I trained groups to see how long would it take. Oh, can I train a group instead of a person individually? We found out that we could do it. So then this is how we got started. And religions want to excommunicate me, my own religion, thinking that I was working for the devil, you see. It got to the point that they didn't know what I was doing. They think, how can you judge something that you don't know that's being done? You don't even know what parapsychology is. I'm dealing in parapsychology. So they stopped getting after me because of that. They didn't know what I was doing really. And when they found out that I was doing something good that people liked and people wanted more of, I mean, then they came on my side, see. But at first it was tough. The newspaper wouldn't take our ads. On Sunday Masses, they would say, don't go over there where we'll practice because that's of the devil, you know, this kind of thing. So we had about 10 years of that, between 1944 and 1953, until finally we got over it. Then by 1966, we came out to see if people liked what we had and would pay for our services, because we were spending too much time and money in research. And then we wanted to give it a try. And we were invited to Wayland Baptist University to lecture on what we had discovered. And they liked what we had. And we created some projects here that they went for, and they wanted more. And then from here, people started to talk about it, what they were doing at Wayland. Amarillo heard about it, Lubbock heard about it, and they invited us to come lecture for them. And then finally, we started to put the class together to teach people because they wanted to be trained. A group of people wanted to be trained. So can you teach us what you taught over at Wayland, what you talked about? Yes. Will you come and teach us here? That's how Mind Control got started. The first paying class, in other words. Well, my education background, we need to talk about it a little later on because I have none. So it cover maybe a couple of seconds to explain. I've never been to school. I've never sat in class. I have not learned my ABCs in English or Spanish. And luckily, I have learned to read and write the Spanish language and to read and write the English language also. Only God knows how that happened, really, because I sometimes do not remember how this came about. It was so slow that before I knew it, I was reading Spanish and writing it, and English and writing it. This is how I became interested in the field of electronics when I became 14 years of age. That's when I started to study a correspondence course in electronics. I could understand it then in the English language, but I've never gone to school. I have no formal education. They say that I have a doctorate. Well, the doctorate that I have is an honorary award in humanities because of the work I've done, but not because it's academic. It's not an academic degree. It's an honorary award. I've gone to so many universities and colleges in the United States and around the world only to teach or to lecture, but never to learn.